Today, San, C-O-N, Femi Falana. Please celebrate him. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Please sit down. Thank you very much for the honor. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I'm delighted to be here. The MC was talking about speaking of the English language, but he also fell into an error when he described me as his father. I am not your father. I have only one boy. In his How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, Walter Rodney examine Africa's pre-colonial past, the advancement made, the impact of slave trade, and the negative consequences of colonialism and neocolonialism on African societies. It was his submission that Africa was deliberately exploited and underdeveloped by European colonial regimes. The same forces ensured that the independence struggle was manipulated to produce political parties and politicians that will retain the colonial structures. In the case of Nigeria, and I'm happy Reverend Father Anthony Odom, who has gathered us here once again this year, did mention some of the great Africans, and I think one of the musicians, the lady, also referred to Madame Ransom Kuti, Margaret Epo, and the rest of them. Those were those who genuinely fought for independence. As a matter of fact, at a stage, members of the Zikis movement, Zik did not believe in them. Dr. Nnamdi Azikiwe did not believe in them. But these young men were inspired by him, and they formed the Zikis movement for delivering a lecture in Lagos in 1948 at Glasgow Hotel. They were rounded up and jailed for sedition. And what was the seditious statement? That the colonial regime was in Nigeria to exploit our people. That law has been declared illegal as far back as 1983 in Nigeria, and I'm talking of the sedition law. But what they now do is to talk of criminal libel. Again, Lagos, Ekiti, and Edo State have wiped out criminal libel. If you are offended, you are asked to go to court to sue for libel. So recently, a colleague of mine, Dele Farotimi in the hall, was alleged to have offended a big man in Ado Ekiti. The police captured him in Lagos and took him to Ekiti, where he was charged illegally. On that occasion, I did tell the authorities the criminal libel was not operative in Ekiti State, and so there was no basis for the legal charge. We were later told that the case was withdrawn by the man on whose behalf the police filed the case. As we are gathered here today, many Nigerians are languishing in custody, not for committing an offense, but for offending one big man or the other. Former president of Ghana, again, our Reverend Father mentioned his name, Kwame Nkrumah, in his Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism, stated that the result of neocolonialism is that foreign capital is used for the exploitation rather than for the development of our people. You know, in Nigeria now, you are told that the Tinubu regime is looking for foreign investment and loans to further develop our country. We can't see what they are constructing with the loans, but at least we can see a new jet, new cars or jeeps, while our people are wallowing in poverty. And that was the point Nkrumah was making. The struggle against neocolonialism is not aimed at excluding the capital of the developed world from operating in less developed countries. It is aimed at preventing the financial power of the developed countries being used in such a way as to impoverish the underdeveloped people. Political leadership, and for students here, what I mean by neocolonialism is you have been granted your independence. In the case of Nigeria, we're giving a flag independence in 1960. But neocolonialism remains, including the language we are speaking, is part of neocolonialism. Because, like somebody said, in your homes now, and for many of you, your parents speak English to you at home so that you can be civilized. Because you are perhaps luckier than us. When we were in the secondary school, speaking of what they call vernacular was illegal, and you could be suspended for speaking vernacular, and that is your own native language. Africans are the only people, like Fela said, that speak foreign languages to their children. I remember somebody came to talk to us, I think it was Fela, he came to talk to us in our university in the 70s, and he said if he became the president of Nigeria, he would speak Yoruba in the United Nations. And we all said, how can? He said, you can see yourself with your colonial heads. And he then took us through, just like the MC was doing the last time. When a British Prime Minister goes to the United Nations, what does he speak? We said English. What are the French president? What does he speak? We said French. What of the Chinese premier? We said Chinese. So why should I not speak Yoruba so that we can also get some job for Yoruba translators, you know? But that is the kind of colonial mentality that we have been schooled in. And in our history books, you hardly read about the great Africans who fought for the genuine independence of Africa, or indeed a country like Nigeria. Now, political leadership in Africa represents a very complex historical legacy, systematic challenges and involving democratic reform. While the continent of Africa boasts abundant natural resources and rapidly growing populations, the people are extremely poor due to widespread governance failures and deficits. Now, many African states today pretend to operate a multi-party democracy, but they all work towards a one-party state like Nigeria. The ruling party will tell you, I'm talking of the APC, we are not involved in what is going on in other political parties, but we know a whole minister is dedicated towards destroying an opposition political party in Nigeria. And this is not hidden. Others, they planted agents in those political parties to cause confusion, so that at the end of the day, only one party will be left. And if care is not taken, and that's their plan, that only one party will produce a candidate. But I know Nigerians will not allow that. The tendency of some heads of state to bypass time limits in Africa is also there. And that has led to coups, coup d'etats in many countries where a president has said, 2 terms are not enough for me, 8 years or 10 years. I want to do more and more terms until I give up the ghost, just like the old man in Cameroon. It was recently in a conference in the US. When it was his time to speak, he asked them, what are they doing here? He didn't know what was going on there, you know. Economic inequality is very common in Africa. Those who go to power acquire jets, limousines, and there's what legislators now call constituency projects. Billions are given to them by a corrupt executive because constituency projects are illegal. But we are told that a senator goes on with not less than 2 billion naira a year, a House of Rep member not less than 1 billion naira. Now, nobody is asking them to account. The constituency projects are never there. This goes on in many African countries. But I can tell you that for the masses of our people, it's about poverty, preventable diseases, mass illiteracy, and so on and so forth. The common disease in Africa is malaria fever. It kills about 800,000 people a year. But our countries have refused to attack malaria fever. 9 African countries have done away with malaria. Can you believe that? 9 African countries, less endowed than Nigeria, have forgotten about malaria fever. The Cubans have invented a system of, they call it biofeeders, that will simply eat up the mosquito eggs. Here, the federal government prefers to buy insecticides and mosquito nets so that malaria can continue to kill our people. In 1976, January, the late Murtala Muhammed, a former military head of state in Nigeria, was in Addis Ababa to deliver a speech that is titled, Africa Has Come of Age. In that speech, Murtala did say that Africa can no longer take dictations from foreign powers, however powerful they may be, and that we are no longer adolescents that will be told what to do, and that the destiny of the continent is in our hands. That is about 50 years ago. Today, the government in Abuja has, for the first time since 1960, allowed the American government to have a military base in Bauchi. There are 200 soldiers in Bauchi. They claim they are working with the government to fight terrorism. But since they came, terrorism has been on the ascendancy, has been on the increase. Today, nobody is safe in our country. In Oyo State, we are taught it was only in the rural areas that children could be kidnapped. But we saw in the heart of Ibadan city, that used to be the largest city in Africa, in the heart of Ibadan, a lady and her twin sons were kidnapped during the week. And you are being told that government is making effort. We condemn terrorism. We want to assure you, we shall rescue them, we shall rescue the children. As we are gathered here, for those of us who are still lucky, there are 415 people in the custody of criminals in Borno State, including 42 children. Some of them are under 5. And that is the kind of country we're in. And what is going on? Politicians are campaigning. It's as if nothing has happened. And a few of them that even show concern, it is that they are dancing on the grave of the teacher that has been beheaded. and those who are in the bush. You know what it means to have children under 510 in the rain, in the sun, with one uniform for more than 2 weeks now. And the government simply feels this is normal. We are going to combat terrorism. One general has been running his mouth very, very wide in recent time. The immediate former chief of army staff, Major General Buratai. That was a man who said in 2018, we have defeated Boko Haram. Another occasion, we have degraded them and rendered them impotent. But today, we know that is not the case. Now, in spite of the enormous contribution of Nigeria to the independence of the Southern African region, South Africa is currently expelling Nigerians, destroying their homes, and brutalizing them. Not only Nigerians, Ghanaians, Zimbabweans, Tanzanians, indeed, all African migrants. And what has been the reaction of our country? As of 2019, 127 Nigerians have been killed in South Africa. I just saw a friend in the audience now, and I said, you left South Africa voluntarily before the crisis. He said, no, Mr. Falana, this killing had been on for years. So I'm saying about 129, 27 have been killed as of 2019. I do not know the figure now, but it's a very dangerous situation. But while this is going on, African countries are deceiving themselves, African leaders, that we are trying to put in place an economic system that will allow us to demolish borders without getting visas so that you can go to other African countries. But while that is going on, the Nigerian government has not done anything meaningful to protect our people in South Africa. Ghana has sent a plane to bring to Accra those who are under threat of being killed. Ghana just yesterday refused to allow South Africa companies to have their licenses to renew minerals renewed. But in the case of Nigeria, MTN, DSTV, all of them are raking billions and taking them to South Africa. Now, on our own front, where you don't have xenophobic attacks, Nigerians have been attacked by terrorists, bandits, and the rest of them. But what other African countries are doing? And I'm happy there are many young people here, and women. And I'm going to just recommend 2 African countries where people have taken their destiny in their hand, political destiny. Women in one African country, the country has been mentioned, Namibia. Today, and this may surprise you, that the president of Namibia is Netumbo Nandi Natawa, a woman. The vice president of that country is Lucia Wiboi. The speaker of the National Assembly of Namibia is also a woman, Amandila. That country just decided women are taking over this country. We vote more than men, and that is what is going on in that country today. And that is one of the most politically stable countries in Africa. That lady, the president of that country, has declared free education for all Namibians, and that is from primary to the university. And they are addressing another problem. Another country that will interest you, because youths vote. In the case of Nigeria, 2/3 of voting population, young people. Senegal decided 2 years ago that even though the man we want to elect is in jail, we are going to elect him. So the president, Zaki, was forced to release him. And I'm talking of Sonko, Usman Sonko, was the head of his party. But because he was not allowed to contest, he nominated a younger person. Sonko was 49. He nominated a 44-year-old man to contest the presidential election. And young people voted for him. They voted for Diamoye Faye. He was 44. And they made a point, and they told all African people, young people can take over Africa, but not about age, about ideas, because they campaign on the basis of ideas. Unlike here, it's all about where is he from. You see Muslim ticket, you see Christian-Muslim ticket. It's not about ideas and policies. But let me tell you the interesting about these two guys. The president, Faye, wants IMF loans, more and more loans. Sonko, the prime minister, asked him, can we account for all the loans that have been taken from IMF and World Bank? If you go and take more, our people will get poorer. Again, the president of Guinea-Bissau staged a coup against himself. He was losing a presidential election. So he simply called the army, take over. So he wanted to stay in Senegal, and the president had allowed him. Sonko says, no, prime minister, we cannot allow a criminal who had annulled election in his country, who has staged a coup, to reside in Senegal. Their quarrel got to a terrible end. 3 weeks ago, the president fired the prime minister. You know what the prime minister has done? Because the power of the people, there is no way you can dance around it. Real power of the people. Sonko called members of the party. I want to go to parliament as prime minister. I'm a member of parliament. I'm going to become the speaker of the parliament. And out of 133 legislators, 132 voted for him. Sonko is the speaker now. You know why he has decided to be a speaker? Just like here. When the president wants to take a loan, he will have to get the permission of the National Assembly. So, Sonko is now the speaker to say, thou shalt not take IMF loans in Senegal. Here, and this is very important for us. They are taking loans in Abuja. Loans and loans and loans. You ask yourself, are they taking loans to address youth unemployment, illiteracy, or what? No. But we are going to problematize the crisis very soon. We are going to problematize it. We've sent a letter to them 2 days ago. Mr. Attorney General of Nigeria. Nigeria is sold $120.5 billion. Can you collect this money instead of making a mockery of our people? Let me conclude by thanking Father Anthony Odo for bringing us together once a year to discuss African problems. Father, I want to congratulate you. Between last year and now, a motion has been passed by the United Nations that slavery in Africa is a crime against humanity. Please keep up your good work. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Come on, put your hands together for Femi Falana, son, C-O-N.